Greetings, kiddos. It is Finn, and if you are new to the channel, welcome. If you've been here for a minute, welcome back. Hey, so we are going to be discussing something that I have definitely talked about on this channel a fair amount, kind of a lot. I mean, not a lot, because it's something that I deal with all the time, and it fucking sucks. But things have been a lot better recently, and so I figured because I have these remedies, these interventions that I have um, kind of incorporated into my everyday routine that's helped my HS not be as bad. I figured I would go over some of those things to help others who are struggling with the same thing. So let's first do the primer. HS, hidradenitis suppurativa, is an autoimmune disorder that is characterized by what a lot of autoimmune disorders are: inflammation. You're trying to avoid inflammation in order to prevent flare ups. Flare ups in this case are referencing the lesions, carbuncles, furuncles, boils. They can get real bad, real quick. And similarly to a lot of other diseases, you experience it in stages, and it's called the Hurley scale. It's stage 1, 2, and 3. So stage 1 of the Hurley scale is just your routine boils. You'll get them in your armpits, in your groin region, really anywhere where you're generating sweat, where there's friction, where there's hair. You're gonna probably get boils. I mean, I've gotten them on my face, so it doesn't really discriminate, but it definitely is more likely to occur in your problem areas where there's sweat and friction and hair. In stage 1, you just routinely get boils. The boils go away and then they reoccur in the same places. And this is a problem when you have reoccurring boils, because your body doesn't really recognize this inflammation. It doesn't recognize it as self, and so it attacks it, causing more inflammation, and that causes scar tissue to form. And so that brings you into stage 2, where you have boils that are being connected by sinus tracts. You have boils that are reoccurring to the point that your skin is no longer functioning as skin. The scar tissue is so prevalent that there's no way for any of the buildup, any of the gunk, the pus, all that gross stuff to go. There's nowhere for it to go because the scar tissue doesn't stretch. Your skin does stretch, and that's why you get boils in stage 1. But you'll have the same things happening, but with scar tissue. And the scar tissue doesn't stretch, and it's very, very painful. On to stage 3, things are not good, not great. Your body starts to eat at itself because it doesn't recognize the inflammation as self and attacks it. And it gets really to the point where it looks like you've been hit by acid. It's like seeing the inside of someone's body. It's pretty gruesome. It's pretty graphic. It gets real bad. And this is a disease that women are more susceptible to having, but men can have it too, and they tend to have it a lot worse. But yeah, I wanted to go ahead and get that out of the way just because there's so much stigma surrounding having boils. And a lot of people will think like, I can't tell the doctor about this because I'm dirty and I don't want to embarrass myself in front of this medical professional. You should always, when you see there's something wrong, say something about it, because this is something that can progress quickly and become very difficult to manage very quickly if you do not take steps to make it better. So to give a little background about myself, so you know that I actually have it and I'm not just blowing smoke. I've had HS, probably all my life, but it started when I was 9. I started getting the boils in my armpits when I was 9 years old, and it got pretty consistent by the time I was 12. And by the time I was 17, I was at stage 2, where I had sinuses in between the boils. From there, from like college age on, it got real bad real quick, especially being a poor college student because I didn't have the money to go to the doctor and I am just constantly stressed. It got really bad, y'all. It got super bad. A common occurrence for a lot of people is having HS in one armpit and not the other, or in one area and not everywhere. A lot of people will suffer from HS differently, and so it looks different between people, but the armpits is the big one. I notice for a lot of people. And I have HS real bad in my left armpit. In my right, it's barely an issue. I do get boils there, but it's just not the problem armpit. This is bad pit here. I also um get them in the bikini region, as well as one on my coccyx that comes back every few years. It's horrible. It's so painful and it smells fucking rancid. So throughout college, things were really bad. And they kind of hit a fever pitch after college ended. And it was to the point where I couldn't get my boils lanced anymore. Like, it hurt so much. It was so fucking, it's so painful, y'all. It gets so painful. And you would think that it wouldn't be as bad from time to time. Like, from like the first time I got a boil lance, the second time to the third time to the fourth time, that it wouldn't be a huge difference. But from the first to the third time, it's a gigantic difference. The second time I got a boil lance, it wasn't that bad. But when I got my boil lance out in Michigan, like a few years ago, it was so traumatic and horrible and painful. And I was sitting in my car crying. It was so painful. And I think it's because of the formation of the scar tissue. It just hurts so much. So it is in your best interest to kind of treat this as soon as you possibly can, because as you get more scar tissue that accumulates in these problem areas, it does hurt more and it's less likely to heal. And of course, during this time, I've had different remedies, different treatments, different interventions, with varying levels of success. But I've found that there are like key categories of things that you need to make changes to. And one of the big ones is food. And I hate to tell y'all, but you're going to have to give up potatoes. You can't do potatoes. Like, nightshades will fuck you up. And being a person that has weird issues with food to begin with, this was kind of easy for me to give up nightshades, to give up yeast. It was kind of not a super easy transition, but it was easier than I think for the average person. There was a lot of foods that I still miss. I miss pizza. I can't have pizza. You can't have tomatoes. You can't have peppers. You can't have celery. I love celery. I can't eat it. There's so many foods that cause inflammation. And this is a thing that you do every day. So if you're able to kind of subtract some of these trigger foods out of your daily diet, you will see a difference. I promise you. One treatment I remember was putting tomato sauce, like tomato paste, in my armpits. I remember doing that at some point as a kid. That shit did not work. Not that I think that like it doesn't work, period, but for me it didn't work at all. It kind of made it worse. With all these like wives' tales and home remedies, be very careful with what you try, because I found that there's no real panacea for it. There's no real one thing that you can do to prevent HS flare-ups from happening. It's more doing, like, having lifestyle changes all working in tandem to prevent you from getting more flare-ups. So what I mean is your diet is a big one. Stress levels, that's huge, because stress is a major trigger for literally every disease. Your weight makes a difference. Your level of exercise makes a difference. Weight and exercise are two different things. Because with weight, you'll have a lot more friction if you have a lot more body. With exercise, I mostly am referring to exercise being something that will help you to stabilize your body and your health, just generally speaking. And so weight and exercise, two different categories. And the last thing for me is bathing. The way that I bathe has majorly changed over the years. So I've already talked about food and changing up how you're eating to kind of avoid trigger foods. And that's a pretty easy thing to do. I mean, it's not easy. It's easier said than done, but it's very cut and dry. Like, you either eat this food or you don't. With stress, it's a bit different because stress works differently for different people. For me, I found that my bathing has helped with my stress. I take a 2-hour bath literally every day, and I do it with like the hottest water I can stand, and I submerge my whole body. And that has made such a huge difference for me. So taking baths definitely in like the physical sense, like being in hot water, having hot compresses, all that kind of stuff is helpful for HS. So being in the hot tub is very helpful. But it also helps a lot mentally. At least for me, being in the tub causes me to stop fidgeting, stop doing anything, and sit down and almost meditate. I just meditate when I'm in the tub. And that has helped with my stress levels, which combats HS. It keeps the flare-ups at bay. And so if you have something in your life that causes you to relax, that makes you feel at peace, latch onto that and do it religiously. Be consistent and do it as often as you can, as often as it will help, because bringing your stress levels down is going to be one of the major components of making HS less of a problem in your life. Weight is something that is kind of contentious to talk about, especially in the HS community, because for some people, weight makes a difference, while for others, it's not as big of a component. And so there's a lot of fat shaming. There's a lot of kind of pressuring people to conform to a certain way of living that may not necessarily be helpful for some people. But for me personally, losing weight did make a difference. It didn't make a huge difference like for stress. Like minimizing my stress has been the biggest difference for me, followed by food. But losing weight makes it, at least for me, easier to navigate and easier to try to incorporate other foods. Like I've tried eating potatoes in the past and I've tried tomatoes, and it seems like it's not as bad because my weight is down, because I have less friction going on. I have less rolls, less moisture being trapped in areas. And so that's really the difference. If you're a person that has a bigger body and you're constantly on keeping everything dry, free of moisture and sweat, then losing weight might not be something that helps you. It just depends on how, like, your body chemistry and how you take care of yourself. Exercise, on the other hand, I feel like could help anybody. Exercise is just very helpful for keeping your body healthy and giving it the tools that it needs to combat illness. So when I refer to exercise being important to lifestyle changes that you make to combat HS, I don't mean exercising to lose weight. I mean exercising to be healthy. So just going on a walk every day, like for an hour, 30 minutes, just getting some exercise in, being consistent with the changes that you're making to your lifestyle will make a difference, because your body thrives on consistency. So keeping things simple, keeping things routine is definitely going to be helpful for your body. Some other things that I've encountered and had differing success with is shaving. There are a lot of people, like doctors will say, don't shave. By no means you should never shave. And I found that for my bad armpit, I get less boils when I shave. Or when I use Nair. I can actually use Nair on my armpit because I don't have any open wounds anymore, which is really nice. But for my good armpit, I don't shave it because it does cause issues. And so maybe it correlates with what stage you're on, because this is stage 1 and this is stage 2, almost into stage 3. Maybe. Not entirely certain, but it depends on you. Again, I would say don't experiment with shaving until you've gotten to a place where you feel comfortable with fiddling with things. So, like for me, I would try different foods that are trigger foods, but not until I got to a place where I'm pretty stable, and I'm pretty able to identify and hone in on the things that could have caused a flare up. Because when you're experimenting with things, you don't want to have compounding variables. So choose one thing at a time to change when you're incorporating things back into your diet, or if you're deciding to change up lifestyle things, like with shaving. Just do one thing at a time, because then it'll be harder to identify what the problem is. As far as treatments go, with going to the doctor and actually getting treatments, I wanted to get the surgery done. And what the surgery is they take a skin graft, cut it off your leg, and then slap it in your armpit. And it's a very, very invasive procedure. It's painful. There's a long recovery time. And then also, it might not necessarily be the cure. HS might come back, so you never know. I decided not to do the surgery and to try to tackle it by myself, and I think I've done a pretty good job. I've gotten to the point where I don't have open boils. I haven't had one in over a year. Over 2 years? Yeah, I think it's been 2 years. I've definitely had flare-ups where my armpit would get, hard and inflamed, and it definitely was like filled with pus, but then it drained by itself. So I've gotten to the point where like I can kind of keep a handle on it, which is really, really nice. But I think that's because all of these things that I've changed in my lifestyle have made the difference. But I didn't end up here without some medical intervention. And one of the biggest things that was helpful for me was steroid shots. Luckily, I ran into a doctor who is an expert in HS. And so she would give me steroid shots every few months. And that was very helpful to get a handle on the HS as I'm trying to make these lifestyle changes. The steroid shots are definitely helpful, but they are not sustainable. It is not a cure. It is not a thing that you need to keep doing, because steroids are dangerous and they thin your skin and cause more issues. So try to avoid getting steroids long term, but they are definitely helpful for taking the edge off like a real bad flare up. So in this video, I just generally talked about things, but feel free to ask me anything you want about like the foods that I eat, exercises that I do, how I lost weight. I lost maybe 80 pounds over the past 2 years. What else? The things that I do to minimize stress. And stress is for me, I would say stress is huge. And of course, from person to person, it's different. But I find that stress for a lot of people is the main trigger for HS. Even if food is also one, stress is, a lot of your food habits are tied to stress. So it's very interesting that everything is connected. But that means that you have to be very, very vigilant in the things that you change. But yeah, I am happy to say that I have been in remission for a while, and it's very, very comfortable. So hopefully you can find a place of comfort within HS, because it definitely exists. And don't give up. Keep fighting, keep pushing, keep making changes, because there's going to be some time, there's going to be something that you do that clicks and changes everything. That's exactly how it happened for me. And feel free to come to me with venting, with frustration, with needs of advice, a shoulder to cry on. I'm here for that, because HS it's taken a lot from me, but I've regained a lot from it over the years. And I'm pretty proud of myself. And I'm proud of you, because you can do it too. But until next time, I bid you all adieu.